just tell me.
All right, guys, I am live with Richard Whittle. I'm so happy to have Rich here. He's someone I've really looked up to. I can't imagine hearing his games. Whenever you hear a Roma match being called in English, I just assume that it's going to be Richard on it. And it's just like when I think of some of our greatest goals, they've been narrated by him. And that voice, might not always think about like a commentator, but think of it without it. And that to me is such a big part of it. So Richard, one way or another, is part of my household, whether he likes it or not, as his voice goes throughout my my living room. But yeah, we were just talking before we got on live here, and Richard was talking about North Ireland and going back this summer, and if he could, and what would the state of the world be? So I wanted to ask Rich. First off, thanks for making this time. This will be about 15 minutes or so. I wanted to ask, how did you go from growing up in North Ireland, a country I've really wanted to visit? I've seen it in media a couple of times, like on travel shows and stuff. I've always found it really interesting. How did you get what's your journey from North Ireland to Rome?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a long and torturous journey. In fact, I first moved to Rome in 1990, if you can believe that, for the World Cup, Italia 90. And at the time, I was doing nothing in the UK. It was a pretty dull place, a dull, dark and grey place. And my girlfriend at the time wanted to move abroad to improve her linguistic skills. So it was a no-brainer. I said, well, we've got to go to Italy. The World Cup's on there. Luckily, she was also a football fan, so she could see the reasoning behind that. And then it was a decision where to go. And she got offered a job in Turin, Milan. I was like, oh, no, okay. And then Rome, I said, that's it. I'll tag along. She said, okay, well, okay, you can come along as well. So, I just popped up in Rome. It was in a February day, February the 7th, if I remember correctly, in 1990. I was a young guy in my 20s, sitting in Campo di Fiore. It was like 20 degrees Celsius. Sun was shining. People were just walking around. This was a work day as well, apparently. Walking around, enjoying coffees, having something to eat. Beautifully dressed, beautifully looking. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm in Rome. I've come home. I don't want to live anywhere else. And then from there was a pretty short step to becoming a Romanista. Obviously, I knew about Roma beforehand, being a mad football fan. So I knew a number of their players in Italy, a number of players. There was only, back in that time in the UK, there's only really one magazine, World Soccer, which is still going. But to find out about what was going on in Europe, and I was always a big fan of European football anyway. So it was I knew the players obviously back from the 80s as well. Bruno Conti from the World Cup, Falcao from the World Cup. Then the other players I didn't know so well, in 1990, but I soon came to know them very well. Going to my first match as well straight away. It was amazing.
To see Falcao live, what was I only have YouTube to see a player like that. So what was it actually like to see somebody who's such a legend? Because to me, it's kind of lost in translation.
Sorry, could you just repeat that again? I lost you in translation there for a second.
So a player like Falcao and even Bruno Conti and Di Bartolomei, players I would have loved to have seen, they're lost because I'm born in 90, and this is nothing but nostalgic. Oh yeah, like I know of those players, but really, what do I know? If you didn't see them on the pitch and you weren't truly a part of it, like you can explain it so much better than actually someone who lives it in the way that I did. What was it like to see someone like Falcao and that intelligent?
Well, by that time Falcao had left. So, I have to say I saw Falcao on television, playing for Brazil. But Bruno Conti was into his final year. So he was still there, much older, but still had that run of hair as he is today with the long hair, still looked the same. But when I arrived there was, a player that I just fell in love with immediately, the Principe Giuseppe Giannini. in the centre midfield, and he embodied everything that was just so cool about Italy. You know, the long flowing hair, the shirt outside the shorts, the languid way he played, you know, knocking the ball around, always had time on the ball, looking up. He was Roman, a Romanista. So this embodied everything that I felt was maybe missing in football, you know, a local guy who's captain in a team, living the dream, really. And, you know, it was something that I really sort of struck me immediately, and how attached he was to, you know, to the shirt, you know, and to the badge, and everything was so dramatic, everything he did. So in that time, it was really, he was the player that, you know, I was just like madly in sort of enthralled by completely. I just watched him all the time, every time I went to matches, because he just stood out. Number 10 on the back as well. And behind me, there's a famous number 10. We'll talk about him in a bit. But, you know, Roma and the number 10s, you know, great love affair. Also at that time, there was Rudi Völler, who was getting ready for the 90 World Cup as well. And, you know, he was a hero amongst the fans for Roma, and then the homegrown players as well. But, you know, it was a team that, a reason that I fell in love with them as well, not just because based in Rome, representing Rome, the colours, you know, the Giallo Rossi colours just stood out immediately, and, you know, the passion of the fans, but also because they were the sort of teams that I like. On their day, they could beat anybody, and then on the next day, they could lose to anybody. You know, they weren't a machine that you might have see from the northern teams. You know, Inter, Milan, Juventus, always well oiled, never give anything away. But Roma, just as they have done all, you know, basically through, since I've been watching them anyway, played off the cup. And sometimes it's just been amazing, and sometimes it's been real despair. But whatever the scoreline, obviously when they won, it was complete delight, and, you know, it's just unbelievable. When they lost, it was, you know, depressing. But at the same time, I was living in Rome in my mid-20s, enjoying life. So there was always a pizza and a beer afterwards to, you know, get out, drown your sorrows.
That doesn't sound too bad, and I can't even imagine like seeing Giannini play. Like, he, you know what I see from YouTube videos, he just looks so smooth, and a player I would have loved to have watched and try to have emulated. So that's so cool to hear you talk about, because I can't conceptualize it otherwise.
Yeah, no, yeah, he was. He was such a cool player, you know. It was just unbelievable. And, you know, he's a year younger than me at that time as well. So, you know, he was in his prime. And, you know, then I was fortunate enough in that year. It was all, as I said before, it was all to come over to Italy and watch the World Cup. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to go to the Italy games, you know, so I saw like Baggio score that wonderful goal against Czechoslovakia, as they were known then, you know, the little step over, which a lot of people don't really, I don't know if they don't remember, but for me, it's one of the greatest goals I've ever seen. When you've seen it live, and he sent about 3 or 4 players the wrong way with that step over, it was unbelievable. And then I was at the match against the USA, and back in that time in Rome and Italy in general, you know, I wouldn't say it was behind the rest of Europe, but it had its own style and its own way of doing things. So I had like a hooded sweat top, which were pretty rare things in Italy back then. It was just a plain red, you know, which you see like, you know, normally people wearing all the time now. And I was waiting, you know, at the obelisk there in front of, you know, with the Curva Sudis at the Olimpico, for someone to come bring me a ticket in true Italian style. I was wondering if they were going to turn up, and these young kids came up to me and they thought I was from America. Obviously, you know, with the sweat top, and I looked a little bit different, and, you know, my Italian wasn't that good, you know, so I didn't really know what they were saying. But basically, they wanted my sweat top because they'd never seen one before. It was like, there's also something that it told me also that Rome was different, a different way of living, and a way that I wanted to experience as well. And I have to say that World Cup was just amazing. I'll never forget it. It was wonderful when Italy played in the Olimpico. even though they weren't playing that well. They was 1-0, 1-0, 2-1, and then they had to go to Naples, and it all fell apart. But it was great to see Giannini, and he scored against the States. Sorry about that, guys. And he went absolutely crazy. Scoring in the World Cup is something amazing, and he was a Roman playing in front of basically his own fans, if you like. It was a great moment. That's probably a standout moment for me in the World Cup, that and the Baggio goal.
That's incredible to think of that, like in that moment against the U.S. and just Italy just in a dogfight yet again. It's just, what can I say? It's a dream.
And I was a young guy, as I said before. I was a really young guy. To experience this, it was just, it was just unbelievable. As you get older, and I find, you get I wouldn't say blasé. You never get blasé because you always enjoy the sport. You love football, and you still have the passion for it. But back then, I was just like one giant smile all the time. And as I said before, that World Cup was amazing, and then the summer there was amazing. But by then, I was like super ultra Romanista. When they moved back to the Olympic Stadium for the 90 season, 1991, I was in there. I was a ticket holder in the Curva Sud, in there with the hardcore ultras, and they were like, "Who is this little guy? Who is he?" They're pretty protective of the Curva. Back then, it was a pretty wild place. I wouldn't say it was super violent in the sense that the the fans looked after each other, but they didn't like outsiders, put it that way. So you sort of had to earn your place there. I kept basically to myself, and my girlfriend ended up coming. Like I said before, she's a big football fan, and the both of us, she was the blondes and me, sitting there, and we were sort of accepted by the closest ultra group. And then we just got into it. We went crazy. It was like the ritual of Sunday, because back then they played the matches, in the autumn months and spring months at 2:00, and then they played at 4:00, and then at 2:00 or 3:00 at other times of the year. So it was completely different. There's no television telling you when you were playing. It was sort of set in stone. So it became the Sunday ritual, to pack a panino and a drink, and you could take that into the stadium, and you got there early because you had to get there early. If you had a seat, it didn't matter. So say you had your season ticket was for row 25, seats 53, 54. If you got there late, people would be sitting there and they wouldn't move. So you had to get there so early just to claim your own seat, which was rightfully yours. So we get there with lunch, and the big build up, and then the match. And, a lot of times the match never lived up to the build-up and the fun that was in the Curva. But sometimes it did, of course. There's some amazing moments. We were there the following year when Roma got to the final UEFA Cup against Inter, which was just an incredible experience, even though we lost that match. But to see the fans in tears, but having that real raw passion, which also I had as well, it was just amazing. We were there the night when Roma beat Milan. Caniggia ran half the pitch, if you remember that, for the little chip in the Coppa Italia, where Roma were just hanging on, and Milan, the best Milan ever, Gullit, Van Basten, Baresi, Maldini, you can name so many names. And that night when Roma just holding on, and then on the counter-attack, Caniggia, the long blonde hair, sprinting through and then just lifting the ball over. I think it was Cudicini was the goalkeeper, went on to play for Chelsea. And I remember that going back, we made our way back to to Staccio we were living in at that time, a long way from the Olimpico, but I think we walked along the Tiber. We walked on the water. We were so happy. We didn't actually walk on the water, but we walked all the way back along the Tevere to get home. It took us hours, but we were buzzing, the adrenaline of it. And that's what Roma did for us, and still does to us, still get heads up about Roma. And I know you were saying about in the commentaries, and that came across, I think, a lot of times in the commentaries as well.
Your knowledge and experiences, I I'm floored. I think like hear these stories, which you don't hear them in English. So to hear these are just they're new things I've come across. And I'm wondering, I'm like, Richard should write a book or like some like a comic book or
Well,
something.
people
Like,
have said that to me. In fact, yeah,
yeah,
I know I need to get down and get these memories and thoughts down because there's so many. You know, the great thing about living in Rome, especially it was the 90s. This is what I'm talking about, the 90s when, you know, Rome was, like I said before, it was a capital city, of course, but, you know, it felt not like that. It felt like a village, and the life was very sort of closed. It was Rome or nothing. The Romans, they didn't care about anywhere else. You know, they went on holidays, but you know, once they're just dying to get back to Rome, and I felt that as well. And that was another thing, you know, like, I think if you really love a place is when you go on holidays, but you can't wait to get back. That's every time. I never was unhappy to return. I was really happy actually to return to Rome. And back then everything was, you know, you could eat out like so many times in a week. You know, I didn't have a lot of money, but you know, it was only a couple of dollars for a big pizza and a beer, you know, because it was a lira back then. It was just amazing time, you know, and the football just topped everything off, and meeting so many friends, Romanisti, Roman guys who became lifelong friends as well. Young guys now have families and their kids are growing up in Romanisti, keeping the flag flying. And it's something that, you know, I feel pretty proud about because I'm like, you know, a foreign guy as well. That was the thing that, you know, made it special for me to be, you know, accepted by the Romans. Well, one half of the city anyway, the important half, and accepted by the fans, and obviously through my commentaries and with this gentleman in the background and what I said about him, you know, when I go back to Rome and people find out, you know, that, you know, I did say, you know, the king of Rome is not dead, Francesco Totti, you know, immediately, well, you can have a free pizza, you can do whatever you want, you know. So, you know, and I get a really, on all seriousness, I get a really wonderful, warm welcome from, you know, Romanisti when I go out, and if I've been away for a while and go back to a restaurant or something, oh, he's back, the king is back. You know, it's nice. I'm not bragging about that. It's just something that that has happened to me, and I'm very sort of privileged and humbled as well. I have to say that you know, something like that has happened to me in my life. So, you know, I'll treasure it forever.
when I was thinking about what questions to ask you, I was like, don't bring up the king is not dead. Don't bring it up. But it comes.
Everybody does.
I'm like, he's probably so tired of talking about that. But
Not really.
I don't.
I'm not really. I have to say, I'm not bragging, but I'm not tired of it because it was a beautiful moment, and you know, and the fact that you know Francesco loved it as well, and you know he went with it with the t-shirts, and it's still mentioned. Recently here, there's a TV show, like a play, you know, like a fictional show where an actor was playing Totti, but it was mentioned a couple of times. It didn't mention it just said the king of Rome. They didn't use the whole phrase, I suppose, for like copyright. And then, you know, it's mentioned in there, and the actor says that, oh, I'm a king without a throne. You know, it was something I think that he sort of took and went forward with as well, because I'd said it not off the cuff in the sense I'd said it, but I didn't take it as something that was going to like just mushroom and sort of define my career at the time, but it certainly did. You know, we've heard it a lot of times, of course, and you know, I don't mind saying it again and again. If that's what you're going to live with, it's not bad.
It would be. I think that would be an excellent bumper sticker. I'd like to just post that in different places around Jersey City where I live. Just people be like, "What oh, don't worry about it." It's a little, you know, little shadow picture of Totti blacked out. That'll be incredible.
No, I think people have made money out of it from the t-shirts. I know I've been given t-shirts by Romanista. Oh, this guy was making, especially back afterwards. You know, we're talking. This is like, you know, 10 years ago now. It's hard to believe 10 years have passed since that happened.
That's 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I think 2011. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think so. 2011.
Oh
Yeah.
I remember where I was. I mean, that's crazy. I'm eating a bowl of spaghetti with meatballs, a faux pas in actual Italian culture. And I remember sitting with I had my back to the TV because I had work that day, and I hear him get the first goal, and I'm like, oh my God, I turn around and I get up, and I sit back down, and I was like, what? Because I can hear you, yelling that King of Rome is not dead. He did it again, and I was just never. You don't forget those things. I think people can sometimes undervalue what the sport could mean and what something like that could resonate inside of you for forever.
And especially, it was, for me, it was special being a big Totti fan as well. Trying to trying to be, objective
Yeah.
in a commentary, which I think generally I was. I'm not saying I wasn't, a Roma fan. I think that's pretty common knowledge. But it was just one of those days. A typical March day in Roma can one minute it's like 20 degrees, the next minute it's 15, and raining. There was thunder in the air. It was just something was brewing, and it was just, and a derby, and we're in Derby week now when we're talking here, and people forget that it's Derby week. Oh, look at my face. You got to win this game. This is a game. We all, I learned that from the 90s when both Roma and the other team weren't really, pressing, never going to really win the league. But, Roma especially would get into UEFA Cup Winners' Cups. But there's 2 matches each season that defined their own league. And that was the derby, and I've never forgotten that. And when I see, especially our first derby this season, the way that the players went about approached that game, there was no fans out there, of course. The fans were telling them, a lot of these players that come from other cultures, other clubs, they don't live it. I think back in the 90s, the players lived it. I went to matches. I hate harking back to the 90s, but I don't really. But 94, when Roma were that match, we won 3-0. I was there. It was just raw emotion, of tears of joy, and the fans and the players were like one. After the match, the players just ran to the Curva Sud, throwing the shirts in, climbing up, trying to get it, over the barriers to get in. The fans were trying to get onto the pitch. It was just one mass celebration of players and fans. And unfortunately, with the situation we are now, we're not going to have the fans. It means so much without the fans. The derby, the Rome derby, without the fans. It was people who make it. And we saw that in the first match, how Roma just fell apart. And it was so disappointing. So this weekend, got to get the revenge, got to go out there and get the victory. Well, however, and that's the thing in the derby, however you win the derby, of course, especially when you win it by 5 goals, 4 goals, Totti chip, Montella hat trick. Those were the glory days. But I'll take whatever off Dzeko's heel. I'll do. As long as we win this weekend, that's the important thing.
Yeah, it seems like they've got a little bit of energy back in them following Crotone. I mean, they looked like a different team at some points. And yeah, we have our moments, but is it coming off that Mourinho kind of kick in the rear end? And what did you think about that when you first heard it out of the blue?
Well, let's let's talk first about the arrival of Jose Mourinho. I was so shocked when I heard that. I think everybody was. We're expecting Sarri. All the journalists were writing about Sarri, and then suddenly it's Mourinho, and the fans. First of all, mixed emotions. Quick straw poll was 50-50, really, with people I was talking to. But then by the next day, it was all Mourinho. Suddenly it was like they just bought into the Mourinho world. We saw the ice creams, the murals going up, and the statue. The fans saying, "Oh, call my kid Josie." Like there's just going crazy. Typical Romans from one extreme to the other. But major signing, of course, like bringing a big name like that in has propelled Roma to the front pages again. The last 2 seasons we've dropped way off with Fonseca. It's been very muted. Roma lost a lot of the passion from Fonseca. I know he's a great guy and a certain type of coach. he brought a certain type of game plan that didn't really work in Italian football. We saw it with Luis Enrique as well when he came. Garcia worked, but they needed much better players. Wonderful team, that Garcia team. Then, you know, after that, you know, Spalletti knew he's coming back to Rome, knew how things work. Ranieri knew how things work. And Fonseca, it sort of in the end just drifted away. Really disappointing. You know, the displays. I think the thing last summer was the Seville game. You know, after that, I was like, this is the way we're going to approach a big, important European game against the Seville team. You know, we're amazing. Went on to win it, of course, beat Inter, which wasn't too bad. But I thought even back then, got to really start getting a little bit more fire into the bellies of these players. I know it's a basic thing to say, but you need to go out with that, you know, desire. And we didn't see it. And, you know, the first match against Manchester United, you know, I'm confident. I wouldn't say I was very confident, but 2-1 going in there. So take that. That's amazing. Then the way we fell apart in the second half, just like so many matches, the Atalanta game, it was just a photocopy of that. And you just knew the writing was on the wall. We won't say, I don't think we'll see that with Mourinho. No, whatever happens, there'll be a lot of fire. And he will, you know, go out there and he'll attack the opposition coach. He'll attack the press. He'll defend the players as long as the players buy into his way of playing, which will be more robust, getting the ball forward quicker, which could be a good thing because sometimes we never got that ball. We started playing on the counter-attack and we're fast on the counter-attack at times, but then teams didn't fall into that trap a lot, you know, especially well-organized teams lower down the table. You know, they could pack the defense. They weren't drawn out. They get caught on the counter-attack. But if you can blend that fast approach that we have with the, you know, the speedy players getting forward, quick 1-2s with a bit of more solid defending, robust defending at the back, clearing the lines well, thinking the first thing, like in any Italian team, is clear your lines, clear that ball away from the danger zone. And if we see that, we could be in for a good season. But, you know, there's still plenty of question marks over the man himself and what players will bring in, how the present squad, you know, what are they thinking? I'm out now. Mkhitaryan, didn't get on with him really that well at Manchester United. Maybe my time's up. Hard to say, but certainly overall, massive shock. But come on, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. If he can go in there and turn things around, he'll be a hero. I see it either he's going to be lauded as a Caesar, or he's going to be sent down to Tevere in a small wooden boat. So let's hope it's the former rather than the latter.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm pumped. Like what you said about being a bit more robust is something I've always wanted. Champagne football is beautiful when it's pulled off rightly, and you have two full teams. But that hasn't been our situation, and the way that he wanted to play felt so far removed from what we had. And yeah, he did a nice job getting Spinazzola to contribute more. But as you mentioned, those big games, where did we show up? And ultimately, it falls on the manager's hands. And it's unfortunate. Like you said, I did like him as a person too. I think he seems like a decent guy. He seems straightforward, honest. And it's just when it comes to him or Mourinho and moving on, I was happy with Sarri. I heard that name. But when I heard Mourinho, I was thrilled. And I definitely felt the way that you did with, yes, give him the benefit of the doubt. I didn't think that his recent spells in England were true to who he really was. I don't think they were accurate representations of how he is as a manager. And I think that Rome will be an excellent base for him to start something really good for us.
Of course he's going to come. The dressing room's going to be a lot stronger. So I think I don't know what happened in the dressing room, but like we had the situation where there's the story of Dzeko falling out. It's quite major falling out with Fonseca. I think the thing about Mourinho, the last time we saw him at Inter, the players bought into his philosophy, and he protected them. So in the dressing room, he always backed them. You know, that team that then won the treble, and they went toe to toe with everybody. And it was him who really led that. That was, that's going back, quite a few years now, 10, 11 years. It's a different Mourinho. He's older, but if he can find that fire again, but also temper it with the style of play that Roma need to play, as you say, being a lot more stronger at the back, robust at the back, clearing their lines, but not just clearing the ball anywhere, trying to play it out intelligently. We haven't seen that. We saw at Manchester United just giving the ball away. So it's so many times against every team we've played against, just giving the ball away in really stupid situations where, with a bit more concentration, and the player knowing that he can knock that ball long, and other players will be making runs to try to, to keep the ball alive. It'll be a different team. So, we've got to be positive for next season.
Yeah, totally. I think Richard kills it, by the way. Anyone watching that, Richard is, I'm like I said before, I'm floored with the knowledge, and I look up to him for sure. And there's a couple comments for you here, Richard. So Reza asked if you could ask Richard if he's personally met Totti or De Rossi, and if you have any funny memories from those encounters.
Well, yeah, I met Francesco quite a few times, and he's a lot younger than me, of course. But when we met, he it was after the King of Rome situation. So we met, and there was he gave me the King of Rome T-shirt, as if it was, I wasn't the one who actually made it famous, but it was quite funny. And in that sort of Roman Italian way, he grabbed me by the cheek. Oh, bello! I was like, Francesco Totti just grabbed me by the cheek like I'm like some little kid, and he is like my uncle or something. And that was a great moment. But other time, I have to say, with Totti, he's very much, he keeps himself to himself. So I have seen him out, and it's just been a basic greeting. Oh, ciao, bello. Oh, ciao, come stai, bene? Okay, that sort of thing. And it's, that's fine for me. I don't really want anything else. I wouldn't want to be, anything closer, than just a quick hello. And then for De Rossi, only in a professional sense, I've met him for an interview. Very super guy, so professional. We know he is. Yeah. He's really down to earth. He's a man from Ostia, outside of Rome, on the coast, and they are like the people of the terra, as they say, grounded, they're not airs and graces about him, but super polite, answered all the questions, just the sort of guy that we know that he's destined to be a coach. The romance of it would be one day he'd be coaching Roma, because he's a young guy at the moment, but within, let's not put a timeline on these things. In a romantic novel, you can do whatever you want. But I think we'd all love to see that. That would be the romantic return of De Rossi as the coach of Roma. But down the line, that's something that he will be doing at the moment. He's working with the Italian national team, learning his trade. You've got to be, you've got to do your apprenticeship. We've seen it with Juventus. Pirlo hasn't done that. He didn't want possibly to become the first team coach of Juventus, but he was thrown in there after a week of coaching the under-23s. And, we've seen what has happened there. But, with De Rossi, he will take his time, I'm sure, and pick his, maybe needs to be an apprentice coach in a Serie B team, or an assistant coach somewhere, maybe to Mourinho, who knows? Something that down the line, if Mourinho sticks around for a few years as well, it'd be great to have a Roman back in there. So Totti, as I say, a guy keeps himself to himself, but got that great Roman wit. And De Rossi, as we've seen, the sort of guy we've seen on the pitch, a real leader and someone you'd look up to, and a generally nice guy as well.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I had the pleasure of meeting De Rossi once, and I remember I was like, I wrote an article on you. I was like, ho scritto un articolo su di te. and I pulled up on my phone a thing I did for Gentleman Ultra, a story I did about him, and he actually like took the time to look at the phone, and he was like, "Oh, what's the website?" Blah blah blah. And I told him, I was just so impressed that he was normal and not a diva, just like a really nice, proper gentleman. And I never forgot that, and it gave me definitely a different perception of who he was, and I miss him a lot. I do hope that he becomes an assistant coach to Mourinho. That would be beautiful to see. And we have a comment here from Huedi who says, "Can you tell Rich that I used to always watch? You always used to switch to English commentary instead of hearing Arabic commentary here in Kuwait, and I thank him for the memories." That's nice. That's a nice one. Going through these. Can you ask? Sorry, we're on delay.
That one, I just heard you saying something about Arabic. I don't think I was.
Yeah, sorry.
Commentating in Arabic, was I?
Yeah. He said, "Can you just tell Rich that I used to switch to English instead of hearing Arabic commentary here in Kuwait, and just to thank him." So that was nice from Kuwaiti.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Hopefully I'll be back next season where the rights are up for for grabs. We'll see who's got the rights, what commentators they want. But I'm out there. Hopefully I'll be back, and Wendy can hear me again in English. And
I'm looking
in the Gulf region, a lot of fans out there as well. I've been out there a few times. There's a lot of Romanisti out there.
Really?
And I've always had a warm welcome as well. And in the Gulf region, in the different countries out there I've been to, and people have recognised my voice as well. So that's been really great as well, and real good. As we find Romanisti all around the world, they're so passionate for the club and for the team, and anything that little snippet about Rome, they'll enjoy. I had some guy coming up to me and saying, "Oh, what's it like to stand outside the Colosseum?" I said, "Well, this is in the Gulf region, who's got an amazing history as well, the Arab world, but I was saying, it's an awesome experience." And then I told them, going to work, I used to drive past it every day. He just couldn't believe it, and I never took it for granted that, I walk past or drove past the Colosseum every day, and I never do. So it was nice to tell somebody, that also it is for people who live in Rome and have lived in Rome, and a lot of friends have left, gone away. It's always there in your heart, something that will always stay with you forever. And I think for people who visit, like maybe yourself, then when you've come over being a Roma fan, Romanista, then a little bit if has been left there when you've jumped on the plane again. It's it's nice to be able. The thing that I like doing when I'm traveling and meeting Romanisti is when they ask me about Rome and the city as well, and ask me about the players, and I can give them a little bit of insight. I wouldn't say I know the players, the modern, but the current crop of players I wouldn't know that well. They definitely do keep themselves to themselves. So that's modern football. I think it's changed a lot. Where a lot of things we're doing it over social media as well, but a lot of people seem to just communicate on social media rather than face to face. So it's always nice to hear from the fans and meet them as well. And, no, that's great. Little questions coming through. Love that.
Yeah, and my buddy Theoren just said, "Rich's voice is the sound of Serie A for me growing up watching TLN in Canada." It's just
that's great to hear. That is wonderful to hear. As I'm heading into my twilight years. Not exactly, but it's wonderful to be able to get what I wanted to do when I started out on my career in commentating was to take that passion from the terraces, if you like, from the curva into the commentaries.
I'm gonna quote you on
from the curva into the commentary position. I wanted to convey that that passion that you try to get across, because I know people are watching, if you're watching in North America, you're watching in the Arab world, if you're watching in the Far East, Australia, the African nations as well. You're a long way away, but you're just as you're involved as the local fan because you have a great passion for the club. And I was able to get that across for Roma. I like to think that without being too over the top. I hope not. I know that some people thought I was, but at times, you get carried away, especially when there's the super goals being fired home.
Yeah.
So things like that. As I said before, it's great. It's great to break break through that barrier, the TV screen, if you like, and try to get close to the fans and give them that feeling of what it's like to be at a Serie A game, especially when we're the fans in the stadium, the full stadiums, the San Siro full, San Paolo full, Olimpico full. Great nights, just passionate, raw, passionate Italian nights. You can't beat them.
To think of the fun that was had and will be had is just something that it seems far in a way, but that one day it's going to come again, and I look forward to that, and I look forward to hopefully being there with you too. So that would be a really nice thing.
I'd love to be able to go to the stadium, meet all you guys, all the Roma fans from. I've met a lot of people in my time at the commentaries. They've asked to meet, after matches and stuff, and I've tried, if possible, to come out, meet them, say hello, because I know they've taken the time, make the trip over to Rome from many nations around the world. So it's always great to have that, closeness to the fans, especially when you're standing outside the Olimpico after a victory. It makes it that sweeter. But even a defeat or a draw, it doesn't matter because it'll always be the next game and you'll always be a Romanista. So that's a great thing to have that family around the world, be part of that. I'm really, really pleased about that, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, and I mean, look at this. I could never imagine a community like this where I've met so many people. I've been to Roma Club Amsterdam, Zurich, around the world. So it's being able to meet people. You're never really alone, too, which I've noticed.
Absolutely. You could come over by yourself, basically. Especially now, you can say, well, who's going to this match, and you meet fans beforehand, and you've got something in common. It doesn't matter who you are. You have that thing in common. So for that weekend, it's all about Roma, and then whatever friendships develop or not, that's part of life. But the important thing is that you don't feel alone because going to a football match is a communal thing. It should be done. You can go alone, but you shouldn't be alone, if you know what I mean. You're there with your fellow fans of the same club, and in this case being with Roma. So if you traveled all the way over from the States by yourself and you met up with people, that makes it even better. It's a much nicer thing. And of course, in Italy's all about community. It's about family. It's about closeness. Italians don't like to see you sitting alone. They want you to, enjoy. If they're eating something, they want you to enjoy it as well, even if they don't know you. So they don't like to see people alone. So it's a sort of country that really draws you in, and the bars are always full, and the restaurants and the pizzerias, and you very rarely see somebody just sitting by themselves. More maybe in the north of Italy, that might be something, people traveling for business and what, but generally in Rome, it's very rare that you see anyone at a table for one. It's like a rarity, has to be said.
Yeah, so true. Man, it makes me miss all of it, honestly, and I can't wait to see the King of Rome is not dead on a sticker when you're walking across the river on the bridge to the Stadio Olimpico at one of those little stands.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure they're out there. There's a lot of murals of Totti around the city, of course, and
That's
the fans, if they can see, if they can make a few euro out of something, they'll do that, and it'll be interesting to see. Also, we're just talking about with Mourinho coming, will will there be some room for Totti to come back in some sort of way? Just wondering, what the club are aiming for. They're being big here with Mourinho. Would there be room for Mourinho and Totti? But in some sort of manner, it's strange, Roma without Totti. Just for me, it's just it's not doesn't make any sense.
Feels a little cold.
To be there in some capacity. I'm not talking about like making decisions where I think I don't know for sure, but I'm sure he didn't really want to go in to be wearing a suit and that sort of life away from the the training pitch, the dressing room where he'd been all his life. You get the feeling that just it wasn't his scene, wasn't what he wanted to do. Maybe not coaching, but certainly I'd love to see him like as an ambassador, and welcome back into the club. He left in such, it was horrendous circumstances. You couldn't believe it. First of all, you couldn't believe that, his final season, he'd be sitting on the bench, not getting on at San Siro, and getting like 10 minutes at the end of the Genoa game, like things like that. That's something you're like, oh my goodness, what a way not to go in one sense. But then, the sending off afterwards, it's just amazing. But then now to be outside of the club, it just, for me, and, the same with De Rossi. They were figureheads in the club, and I think the club hopefully will find a way. It doesn't always work coming back, but find some sort of way to bring them back into the fold. And maybe as ambassadors, a slow, a slow process, if you like. But imagine Totti traveling around the world representing Roma. It's a no-brainer, in my opinion. When it turns up in the States and different places, how many fans are going to come out to see Francesco Totti? And then maybe a lot of them mightn't have been Roma fans, but they're bought by Romanista, and so the Romanista community grows around the world. It's people come up and ask me for autographs and want photos. What they're going to do with Francesco Totti? It's just crazy.
There's a final question, and it's from Theron. He asks you, what's your favorite memory as a commentator?
Oh my goodness. There's a lot of great memories, of course. Looking back, the King of Rome moment, although that was never really, was never planned. So, that's in retrospect, that was the greatest moment that came afterwards. I'm just trying to think of matches that stood out. I'm trying to think with Roma as well. So many games. This favorite moment with Roma, there were always moments that looked as if they were going to be the greatest moments, and then in true Roma style would fall away. So I'd rather look at that. I remember the Sampdoria match where could have won the league. The Inter won the league. Remember that game? Cassano came back, set up Pazzini. But I commentated that match, and Roma had taken the lead in the first half, and it was so amazing. I just thought we were going to win the league, and then to like what happened, and then to keep it together, really, but I think in that match it was a lot of like the emotion came out. I don't want to dwell on the Coppa Italia final. I commentated that. It's not my favorite moment, but it's a moment. Do you know what I mean? A moment. I think. Sometimes I'm the sort of guy who remembers like the the bad moments. You're like, oh no, that'll stick in my head. And then someone will come up, oh, but we did this. And I thought, oh yeah, I forgot all about that. But because I think in those tough moments is how you bounce back from those, how you deal with those moments as a professional. Those are important. But anytime, Francesco Totti goals, that goal against Buffon, the time we won up at Inter when Totti was just played Inter off the park. I think it was at the night Florenzi scored his first goal for the club. I think that I'm talking in recent memory. I'm trying back, and that's going back a little bit now. And derbies, so many derbies, so many derby. Well, not defeats, but there've been a few. The Luis Enrique match where they scored in the last seconds, again trying to hold it together and that. Then there'd been other moments where we just tore them apart, and it was the Nangolan goal. Remember, driven low into the net. Those of recent times. Those are standout moments. I remember as a commentator for Roma. Plus, I've got other moments where I was commentating other matches. I got to say one of the great times was when Napoli tore Juventus apart. Cavani, I think, scored 2 or 3 at night in San Paolo, where the San Paolo was bouncing, and it was Cavani. I think even that game, Chiellini pulled his hair back as well when he was running, but still couldn't stop him. That stands out because going down to Naples always an amazing situation and occasion. I've been there to commentate Roma matches, but a couple we've won, and you come away, well, that's great, and then a few are just lost and draws. But I have to say, going to Naples is always great fun. They're really enjoyable people down there as well, and then obviously afterwards everybody goes for pizza, so that's a double celebration, whatever that is, whatever happens. But so many memories of commentating Roma. Forgive me here, and if I can't pick one that stands out, and I think people might come and say, "Oh, I remember that moment." And I go, "Oh, yeah, I know, I remember." That's a great thing, having your memory jolted a bit as well. So, if I'm going to write the book, I'll probably need somebody to do that for me.
I was just thinking, whether it's your future book, the comic book, a podcast about tales of the Curva Sud, something like that. I mean, I think everyone on us on Twitter and YouTube are going to be investing in that. It's just I read comments here like through Twitter and YouTube, and everyone just wants to listen to you talk. They're just like, no, just let him talk. We want to hear everything he wants to say all the time.
Yeah, just let him go on. Just start him and go on. But the great thing is, that's the thing when I start talking about Roma and my time in Rome and supporting the club and going, from, as I said, from the Curva to the commentary box. It's been a great journey. And there's so many stories, and I'm sure once we come off here, I'll think, oh my goodness, why did I say that? I remember something, that time when we did this, and it is a great thing. And as I said before, I'm so pleased, proud that Roma had given me this opportunity to do this in a sense. I've always been passionate about football, but I think I was just waiting for that moment, and Rome, the city, Roma, the club provided it. You don't ask why you fall in love, you just do, don't you? And you're like, oh goodness, I'm in love, I can't help it. And I think in the last years, the thing that's the last couple of years, I just felt that sometimes, I'm not saying the club was being too far from the fans, and the players haven't embodied what I sort of believe in, that Roma way of playing football, and that sort of like spirit that sometimes just falls apart, but at other times just rises above everything. I'm just thinking back, I was at the Barcelona match. I think that's probably the last time where you just felt that again. I remember I was talking about back in the 90s, the derbies, where you felt the players and the fans were just one complete entity that night against Barcelona. I wasn't commentating the game, but I was there, thankfully, being able to watch it and not relax. That was certainly, but I could become just a crazy fan. And the build up all day in the city was just, there's just this energy about, in Rome, there's a certain energy anyway, in the streets and in the pizzerias, and the Barcelona fans were there sort of like, yeah, it's all done. It's like, felt it walking up to, up to the Olympico. All the fans were already bouncing and feeling positive, and we're there like hours before. It was like the old days, it was really great to actually not, you see people, well, we don't, see people turn up 2 or 3 hours, maybe in Naples now, in the past 2 or 3 hours before kickoff. You don't really see that in modern football. But that was one of those nights when the stadium was full 2-3 hours beforehand.
Maybe next time we talk, we could do like a whole episode just on that game.
You could. we could. I've only just started, but I know we don't have a lot of time. But there was one of those nights. So what I'm talking about really is that what we need to get back is get that feeling back. So you need to get a couple of players bought in. Roma need to get players in, like Nangolan, like Strootman, who bought into it, started speaking Romano as well. Not always, just wanted to, have a translator and speak in English, or speaking their own language, be it Spanish or whatever, but actually getting into Roman life. And when Nangolan and Strootman left, they were just, totally distraught, the thought of leaving Roma.
Yeah.
But I don't feel a lot of these players, if they leave Roma, will have that same feeling. But we need to get that back. That's the important thing. If anyone from management was watching this, or it gets back to them, that's what they need. I always said that, don't lose that Roman and Romanista feeling within the club. Don't make it a sort of bland, like international brand, if you like. We're spreading the brand sort of thing. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Rome doesn't spread its brand. People come to Rome because it's the most beautiful city in the world. The club should be building on that. That's the way I feel. And, getting the players in who really buy into it. I think Mancini has bought into it. Gianluca Mancini, you see him as a battler,
yeah, absolutely.
Karsdorp as well now has suddenly turned into like a little bit of a battler as well. You want to see that, standing up for the shirt, not rolling over. And and this weekend, as I said before, if we win the derby, it's it could be like a good springboard for next season, and not even contemplating the other option.
Anyway, Richard, thank you so much for your time. I thought this would be 15 minutes. It is 58 minutes. I'm sure you have to go to bed at any hour at night tonight. Thank you so much. And
I'm going into extra time.
Yeah, we're in extra time. So, thank you so much, Richard.
It was a pleasure. Really was. And, as I said, Wayne, I know you're a big Romanista. I've spoken to you in the past as well. So when you asked me to come on, I said, no problem. It'd be great to speak to you because, you're speaking to, people of this like-minded as well. And, you come across really well. You're a great young guy. You allowed me to chat away, which is great. Made me feel at ease, which I generally am anyway. But as I said, we don't want to go on too long. People, I'm sure, plenty of things to do. But anytime again, we'll talk. Maybe looking ahead to next season, Jose in, see what players we get in.
Yeah.
Also, looking ahead,
get the Wolf
it's going to be a much better last 2 seasons. Whatever, I don't care what people think. That it's not been up to what we expect from Roma. I know we don't have to be winning the league, but we've got to be showing to Roma grinta, and desire, for the lupa. That's the thing. We want to see that because you definitely get it from the fans. And we can't wait to have the fans back, and can't wait to have. Personally, I can't wait to see all the Romanista from around the world coming back to Italy, visiting whole of Italy. coming back, especially filling the piazzas and the restaurants and the pizzerias and the bars in Rome. And hopefully I'll be able to meet up with a lot of Romanisti next season when all the fans are allowed back into the stadium again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard. We'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Good no night. Problem. And as always, Forza Roma.
Forza Roma. Sempre. Sempre. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.